Hi, I'm Jerry Hyde, Youth Services Manager at the Ames Public Library. Welcome to Well Read, a program about a little bit of this and a little bit of that at your Ames Library. Lots of times we talk about programming and the books that are inside the library, but today we are going to talk about play. And Mr. Rogers says, play is often talked about as if it were seriously relief from learning, but for children, play is serious learning. With me today to talk about that topic and how serious learning it is for children to play and to be given that time to play and opportunities, much like at the library, to play is so very important. So let me introduce our guest this morning. Natalie, would you like to kind of tell us a little bit about you? And I know you're not abnormal, or you're not familiar to many of our viewers because you've been on our program several times. But tell us a little bit about yourself and remind us who you are and why play is important to you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. I'm Natalie Welter, and I have been, well, other than being a grandparent for 5 young children, play is one of the things I like to talk about most. I'm an early childhood educator, have been in the field for over 30 years. As a teacher, as a consultant, a parent educator, a teacher educator, and currently retired from full-time employment, am supporting parents through some of the things that happen in our community, through raising readers, through Step into Storybooks here at the library.
We'll talk about that in a little bit too.
And of course, as a grandparent, supporting parents. So I'm passionate about play and the benefits that play is for development.
So it sounds like you're very passionate about play. So can we start back at the very beginning and let's define what play is?
Well, I'm going to use a definition that I found in, it's actually a research summary on play and learning that was written for the Children's Museum in the Minnesota Children's Museum. And it was written by a Rachel White from the University of Minnesota and her colleagues. And she talks about play being defined as pleasurable. So that's one aspect of it. It talks about it being intrinsically motivating, that play in and of itself is motivating and doesn't need an end goal. It's a process. It's something that's chosen freely. So it's something we like to do.
That's not so much, is it?
And then it's actively engaging, whether that's engaged physically or engaged mentally. And finally, it's non-literal. And that's where we get into all that imaginary play.
And we all know how, well, maybe we don't all know. Tell us about that imaginary play and how important it is and how it correlates to reading and why that's important for us to be able to do that before we can do these other things.
Absolutely. So when we think about, in fact, that's what one of the research pieces show, that connection with literacy. And when we play, we represent life as a young child. We're doing all of those things that represent our world. When you think of a child playing in dramatic play and they're dressing up or they're engaged and they're acting out those things that they know within their own life, well, that's a representation. And what is reading and writing? The written word is representation of what we know. Right. Or what we think, or
right, and they're little symbols representing those things.
Those symbols, right.
And that's why so many children like to imitate doctors and nurses and storytime presenters and and teachers, or because that's their world, and so they're expanding that by pretending to be them as well. And it's so important to let them have that time to do those things as well.
Right.
And many times there's nothing there other than using their imagination. I mean, no bought-in toys or no bought-in things, that they can make what is in their environment work with what they're trying to do. So symbolic play is one kind of play. I know there's quite a few others. Can you share with us some of the other types of plays and what their importances are?
Okay, well, and when we talk about play and some of those aspects of play, we think about things like messy play. And messy play is very important. If we go back to Jean Piaget, and he talks about schemas, and we think of behavioral schemas during play, and you think of the toddler who transports things, gathering and dumping and gathering and dumping. We call that transporting. That's a schema. And that's messy.
Yeah.
And we're picking up after them constantly. But it's so important that they go through some of those stages. We talk about connecting, things like building or connecting things using tape and stickers, and taking all kinds of things like boxes and recyclable things and putting them together. And that's that connecting of things. And we talk about transforming things. And then that gets really messy with mud and sand and water and all of those things. And children gain so much through all of that sensory play as well. And it gets messy.
Well, and can I make an
Sure.
aside here? I know lots of times in our programming that we have with our crafts and activities that we have those messy opportunities to play. And I hear quite a bit from parents talking about, well, we don't want to do this at home because it's too messy, but we come to the library so we can have that. So people know how important it is, but sometimes they're not always open to creating that mess at home and cleaning it up afterwards. And,
Right.
But like I know Play-Doh is somewhat messy, but it is so important also for other things like your finger muscles and
Right, that's right, you're building those physical skills, those motor skills, along with making those brain connections. You know, when we talk about a lot of this, it's about building those brain connections and about building muscle. One of the things, another aspect of play is that sometimes play is risky. And we get into that when we think about the building of muscles. Sometimes we need those opportunities to learn balance. You know, when we're climbing on rocks, when we're scooting up a tree and
Right.
climbing a tree.
yeah, or walking on the edge of the cement wall or you know the brick wall.
Absolutely.
Those are necessary things for our children to use. Now that's not to say we're going to just throw them out there in the world and let them take care of it. Although part of that should happen too, because
Sure.
mom and dad and caregivers are not going to be right there all the time.
Yeah.
But
Well, and that's right. And they need to learn how to manage those risks, and they learn a lot of that on their own. Sometimes when we're too cautious with our children, we actually make them less safe. You know, but by talking about things like balance with them, they're learning how their body works in the environment, and they're learning they're learning things, physical properties, you know, properties of physics, and they're learning about space and such, and they're building their muscles, they're building their bodies.
Yep, and that part is all very important, and to keep them in a glass bubble or a bubble of some sort to protect them isn't doing us any favor. And again, I know we've had this discussion when in planning Step Into Storybooks throughout the years about, well, is this a safe program to do or a safe station to have? And with, I mean, obviously, like with scissors, we want to provide child-proof scissors and not the really, really sharp scissors that maybe a seamstress would use. But we want to provide them with those tools that will help them be successful in trying out the different types of activities that they're challenging themselves. But let's go to the outdoor play, because that seems to be like where lots of risks are happening. Climbing those trees, balancing on that retaining wall, and you know, getting mud in their hands and in their face, you know, in eating dirt, or, you know, grabbing perhaps a plant that's not necessarily safe, like, you know, something that's going to have a reaction. So how why and how can we make that safe, and why is that such an important thing to work and play out in our environment?
Well, I would recommend some reading by Richard Louv, Louv, that if you want to really get into outdoor environments and nature and children and why it's so important. There's a lot of research that's coming out about children needing to be outside for physical reasons, but also really helping with their brain development. Getting outside in nature helps them learn about that natural world. It helps them become aware of conservation and environmental kinds of things. But it also, there's a lot of research that's looking at how our children who aren't getting outside are having more difficulty in school with attention and focus. And when we get them outside, it makes it a whole lot easier for them to focus when they are inside. So you think of those school-age children.
That big, huge outdoor that we can get some of that energy ran off, but also at the same time they're exploring. And
they're exploring and they're learning about their world. One of my favorite things to do with my grandchildren is to go creek stomping in the back. And we were out there the other day just looking at some of the ice forming on the creek and talking about all those properties of water and the language that goes with that as we as adults help support some of that play.
And again, helping that vocabulary, so when they're reading, they know what those words are meaning, but they know more than just the meaning. They can also reflect back to that experience that they had and that conversation hopefully they're having with their adult person that's going with them. But also, playing helps with side-by-side play and sharing and collaborating and cooperating and making those different things that happen so people are not taking what doesn't belong to theirs, or if they do, some sort of interaction happens. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're talking the social emotional part of learning. And we talk about those academic areas, the reading, the writing, the math, the science, all very important aspects. But the social emotional will lay the foundation for life. And it's so important that if we think about soft skills, those really are those social emotional skills, being able to communicate, to cooperate, and that's one of the things that play, given the opportunity to play without a lot of adult help and getting too involved,
to controlling what's happening,
to control what's happening, is that we let children figure some of those things out by themselves. That problem solving in social situations can happen so much quicker for children when they are given those opportunities to figure some of that out on their own.
Well, and I think we see that here at the library all the time around our Lego table. The whole aspect of sharing the different colors and sharing the different sizes and the little animals and all that kind of stuff, and who's going to be where, and can I build on your building, or I'm going to take everything down because I want it playing, so there's lots of neat things. I just love watching how they work those problems out, and if that opportunity of play wasn't there, they wouldn't have that experience.
Right.
And go ahead.
And that's not to say that adults can't intervene.
Oh, right.
When things are not, when children are having a difficult time. And one of the best ways to intervene is to just be present.
Right.
And observe what's happening.
And ask questions.
And ask questions.
Open-ended questions.
Yeah. And know when to kind of get in there and be part of the conversation and be part of the play. And I think it's important for adults, parents, grandparents, whomever, to understand how important it is to observe what's happening with the children, to watch that development through what they're doing and through their conversations, but then also to be able to step in to something the child's interested in. Self-esteem really is supported through our interest in what the children are choosing to do.
Well, we can very much see your passion and how important you think play is in our children's lives. And we truly know, I know both of us truly know how important that time is in a young child's life and all through school, to learn how to play and have that opportunity to play. We provide several of those with our programming that we have. We have an upcoming program is Step Into Storybooks in April that we will have again, a nice yearly program that provides a variety of stations throughout the library and outside. And this year, this theme is play. It's all about play, and it is all about play. All of our life is all about play in positive ways. And not just like on a football field or on the basketball court. Play is how we learn and experience our world. We also have a wonderful wall called the Wow Wall here at the Ames Public Library that our Ames Friends Foundation board provided funding, as well as the funding from Roy J. Carver Charitable Trust, the Kinsey Lindstrom Foundation Incorporated. Without them and the design from Benjamin Design, we would not have the Wow Wall in the library. You can find that in our right next to our storytime room where fabulous programming are happening as well. So both of those things take time to take a look at the wall, whether you're an adult or a child. There's lots of different opportunities there. We also have the little pretend area with the refrigerator and the stove and, fixing dinner and taking orders and stuff. So lots of pretend play and lots of plays happening at the library, because we know how important it is, and we know that play is a child's work. And it, just like you and I go to work every day or work at home or work outside the home, a child needs that opportunity to do their work too. So thank you, Natalie, for coming, and thank you all for watching, and until next time, happy playing and happy reading.